Um, our MC still isn't here. So we're going to get started anyway. So if you're going to be in the grand entry, could you please make your way to those doors over there? And we'll get started on grand entry in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Welcome to the 2024 Circle of Knowledge and Practices Conference, where we gather to celebrate, learn, and build a stronger future. As we bring together educators from every corner of Manitoba, we honor the histories and languages of First Nations and take bold steps towards preserving these cultural treasures for generations to come. This annual two-day gathering highlights excellence in education and promotes strong partnerships with the schools and First Nations we serve. The presentations at this unique event offer insights and inspiration and align with the conference theme, strengthening languages and cultures for the next 25 years. Thank you for joining us as we honor the past and empower future generations. Together, we are building a legacy for the next 25 years and beyond.
All right, we just brought in the flags. If you could remain standing as we honor those flags with a flag song. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ray Coco Stevenson and the Walking Wolf Singers. I'd like to bring up a great elder, Ed Azure, and he's going to have a few instructions for you, and he'll be doing the opening prayer. Come on up, Ed.
Good morning. Tamaskat no ni ako magantik. That's the first time I have ever been called great. I'm big, but I'm not great, I don't think. My friends, we just finished our pipe ceremony here this morning. And as is our custom as Cree people, we did our pipe ceremony. When we did our pipe ceremony, we sat on the ground. When our people made prayers and petitions to our Creator and His servants, oftentimes we humbled ourselves and we sat down. We sat on the floor and in a humble way, So I'm going to ask you all, if you be so kind as to bring that tradition back. You know, we sit down. So please sit down. Sit down for this opening prayer. Hey, nanas kumun, niwa kumagantik. The other thing is there are very few elders that I have seen that use a mic. We didn't use a mic in our pipe ceremony this morning. And again, we're not going to use a mic in making this opening petition to our Creator. This is between all of us and our Maker. So, kainan taute menua kumagantik uta utesi ewi ni pawiat egota nigagi semua. Pegagi sumatata ko kiatos kehagan tepe pako naman ko usewat suliyo soksyo skita kakano ni kekaman mos tubitsi haya tuminosta ko ukmat simyo ko o kekoche awas kapenogos ekos be kita makanay ekse kagi sumatata penanas kumuha ay may ay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, that young lady there has something to give you. Okay. All right, if we could have our VIPs have a seat as well. Thank you so much for your patience. I'll take the flags up here. I'll call you up right away. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience and thank you for listening to our instructions during grand entry and the prayer. Welcome to the Circle of Knowledge and Practices Conference for 2024. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause for showing up. Woohoo! We're going to have some fun. All right. I want to bring up our great leader, Charles Cochrane, to come up and give you some words of welcome.
Jimmy Witch. First of all, I want to say thank you to Elder Ed Azier for the pipe ceremony this morning, as well as the opening prayer. Jimmy Witch. Thank you very much, Ed, Elder. I want to say thank you. Jimmy Witch. I'm going to introduce myself to start. Kap mashing mikisen danish nabe wizwen kakakwek yujung donji. Apachegeng gichi nandan wasago mamud abyang nungum. Wasago nungum akine wasago ma bijat. Kichigego. Kaya danish nabe men. Kichinenda da. Apchas kichinenda wo janish nabe ang do janish nabe mong. Menina siya kanoban naman, chigi. Gichina, mo sa kwan. In my language, I introduce myself as Flying Bald Eagle. My name is Charles Carkin. I'm Anishinaabe from the Ebb and Flow First Nation. And in the language, I said I'm proud, a proud language speaker, proud Anishinaabe, just as we all should be proud. I do want to acknowledge and thank the nations of Treaty 1 for allowing us to be here, to acknowledge Treaty 1 and allowing us to come and be together here, come to work together, come to network together, to come live, laugh, and love together. Thank you, Treaty 1 territory, to the chiefs and the nations of the Treaty 1. Thank you very much. I want to give them a... I also do want to acknowledge and thank the dignitaries, the Grand Chief from MKO region, Garrison Sete, very good friend of mine, Ichimiigwech. Garrison, I know you. I was just standing with you. I don't know where you went, but Grand Chief Garrison, thank you very much, Sete. MLA Billy Cross, thank you very much for your attendance. I do know there's also other dignitaries from nations, from our councils from our nations, and again, welcome. We come sometimes with heavy hearts, I will say that. You know, when this past month, it's been some very difficult times, difficult moments. Certainly the loss of our Grand Chief Kathy Merrick has given us some heavy hearts and thoughts. Also, Little Johnson Redhead from Shamattawa, loss of a little boy, little child. So I'd like to take this moment to actually provide a moment of silence for both Grand Chief Kathy Merrick as well as Little Johnson Redhead. So if we can take a moment of silence. Miigwech. I'm not going to take up much time. I certainly, again, it's another awesome gathering for those, especially those that are new to us. You know, when you look at the people around this room, these are the ones that we totally rely on educating our children in our First Nations. We have the schools from our First Nations here, as well as educators within even the organization of the Manitoba First Nation Education Resource Center, as well as the Manitoba First Nation school system. Obviously, the strength in our communities is in education. And if there's one thing, and this is something that was shared with me, but I think it's a given that if there's one commonality we all have as people anywhere around, not only in our own home communities, but everywhere and anywhere and everywhere, one commonality is that we all have had teachers in our lives. We've all had teachers. We've all been in school, so obviously we all have that common of having a teacher in our life. And I know in many cases, there's that one teacher that carried us through. And I've had that myself. I always think back of those that inspired me. Being from my home community, English being my second language, Anishinaabe is my first language. And even going through our school systems in our home communities, but also in provincial school system, we face a lot of challenges growing up. I would even say my own experience, I was probably close to actually not finishing even high school. But there was moments where there's teachers that supported, school staff that supported us as students, as children, to finish school. And personally, I'm glad I went through that experience and finished. And if we look at it, that's exactly what our schools, our children are asking us to do. So that being said, I do want to acknowledge the teachers, the educators that are here. I want to acknowledge our First Nation educators and teachers. I want to acknowledge our non-First Nation teachers in our schools. I always acknowledge our Filipino community. I also want to acknowledge our, and being respectful, I hope I don't say it wrong, our African community that's here, that helps us in our schools. I say thank you very much. We need you, we rely on you as well to work, all come together and work together for our children. So I want to say that. So I thank you very much on that. I also want to welcome and acknowledge our elders. We have elders that help us guide, that preside. Thank you, which. And our presiding elders, I'll introduce them. They don't need to stand up, but Elder Shirley Roulette from Sandy Bay, Elder Brian Monkman from Ebb and Flow First Nation, Elder Martha Spence from Tatasquayak, Elder Margaret Sutherland from Birdtail Sioux/Peguis. So I want to say thank you for your support in our conference. And then the last thing I want to say is really, it resonates on the theme of who we are and where we're going. Certainly we are in our 25th, basically have been going through our 25th year as an organization. It started small, and as far as I'm aware that it started so small that there might have been less than a handful that started in MFNERC. When you look at it today, we have around 270 employees providing supports to the schools in our First Nations. So acknowledging the staff that help provide the supports and services to the school. We also have a school system that again has 12 First Nations under a school division, school system concept with about 450 to close to 500 employees providing education to all our students. So I want to acknowledge the educators in both organizations. I look to my left, I always acknowledge I'll say our interpreters, staff in their deaf and hard of hearing, and acknowledging them because they provide a great service to our community. So thank you very much. And last but not least is yourselves as educators, as people, and all come together here. So I do want to say, Ichimigwech for everybody for coming out. I hope I did not forget anybody. I got to say thank you to Mike and the people that help organize, Ashley, Ellen, people in finance and HR that are working behind the scenes, behind that wall on registration. So thanking everybody. I certainly have a very hardworking associate executive director, Sharon McKay here somewhere. Oh, right there, Sharon. Thank you very much. And then also the directors that are that get themselves involved in the hard work in terms of delivering our services. So I know Davin, Lorna, Allison, Colleen for school system, and all the supports. Boy, I'll be in trouble if I forget anybody there, but I want to say thank you to everybody, Dolores and George and everybody. So that's all I have to say. I want to say thank you very much. It's really an honor to be speaking in front of you, welcoming you. So, Miigwech, thank you. Mike, thank you very much. You have a good day, everybody. Oh, and our keynote, Mr. Carl Subban. I've never met Carl, but I've seen his name before, as well as I am a sports fan, a hockey fan, and if you'll recognize and might even see the face of the Subans, and PK Subban, NHL player, and I know the son was also goalie with the Boston Bruins system, so I don't know where our Carl is. Oh, there he is, Carl. Welcome. I know he's got a great speech to keynote to provide. So, yeah. So, miigwech. Thank you, everybody. Miigwech.
All right, let's give another big round of applause for our fearless leader. Thank you, Charles. All right, our MC showed up. I want to introduce him. He's from the York Factory Cree Nation. How many Cree people out there? Excellent. I know how much you guys like to tease, so make sure you tease Leroy about showing up late. All right? Leroy Constant is a longtime musician. I'm sure you're going to recognize him. He's a great guy. And welcome up, Leroy.
So first things first, I'll say that the meeting doesn't start till the chief gets here, okay? And the reason I was late, I have this on record, Charles. You told me 9:30 start. So wherever Charles is, that's on the record. My name's Leroy Constant. It's been my pleasure to be your MC for next few days. How many of you were at McPhillips Street Station last night? Raise your hand. Everybody's scared. Everybody's scared. I know you're tired. That's why I'm asking. You look tired. Let's bring up the energy. Come on, let's try it again. Who was at McPhillips Street Station last night? You don't got to be shy. Oh, see? Now we got some honest people here. Now you're waking up. What about the club regent? Who was that club regent? You're still lying. Okay. So again, my name is Leroy Constant. I come from the York Factory First Nation. I was the chief there for 4 years, a council member for another 4 years. And I was a musician, touring musician. I've been all over the world. And the biggest crowd I played for was 90,000. So you guys don't scare me. It brings me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a great friend of mine, a leader of the MKO Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome. Oh, he's got to get his hat on first. Our Grand Chief of the MKO Nations, Grand Chief Garrison Settee, everybody.
Tanse, Anin Bujo, Etlenete, Haumitakwapi. It is my honor to be here this morning, spend a few moments with all of you, and I want to thank our elder for doing our pipe ceremony, Ed Azure. Thank you for that, and also Coco and his drummers for the opening song, very beautiful song this morning. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of MFNERC, my friend Charles. Thank you for what you do for our nations. This is very important work. As an educator, I really believe that this is the way for our people to educate them and empower them to face the next 25 years. Also, I want to thank the staff of MFNERC for the work that you do to support Indigenous education all over Manitoba. I want to say miigwech kinanaskumit now. And I know there's some elders that are present. I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for the leadership and the guidance that you provide for us as leaders in our nations. I just want to say miigwech masicho kinanaskumit now. I am very thrilled to be able to bring opening remarks at this very important gathering. And I believe that the theme that you have chosen is very appropriate for the next 25 years that we have a vision to promote, to strengthen, and preserve our languages and our culture. I know that all of us here have been impacted in some form through the aggressive assimilation process, where they assaulted our identity, our languages, and our culture. For 150 years, they have tried to kill the Indian in the child, as they say. But I'm thankful tonight I see a room full of indigenous warriors that have never given up on their language and their culture and their traditions. And I want to say thank you, Miigwech, for being who you are. I myself, I am very fortunate that I grew up speaking my language. I grew up with grandparents that did not speak English at all. They spoke only in Cree. And I'm very happy that I grew up with those kind of grandparents. And my siblings and I, when we get together, we still speak to each other in Cree. That's how we were raised. And I still have my language. And I've been learning Anishinaabemowin for the last 20 years. I've been trying to learn. I usually start off speaking in Anishinaabemowin, and then I get lost and I revert back to the better language, which is Cree. I'm just kidding. I'll tell you a little joke while I'm on that. At an MFNERC gathering, we had a speaker. Some of you know him, Fred Kelly. He was a replacement for somebody that did not make it. So he started off and saying that, he says, I was not the first choice for this assembly. He says, but I'll let you know. He says, if you want to see, get a Cree. If you want to talk, get a Mohawk. But if you want to go all the way, get an Ojibwe. I'll give that one to you. I'll give that one to you. But my relatives, as educators of our First Nations, we do have some work to do. We do have a responsibility. We have a duty to protect our languages from becoming extinct. I read some time ago that there are 3 languages that are projected that will stand the test of time. They are Cree, Ojibwe, and Inuktitut. And we need to do our utmost to ensure that our languages are promoted in our education systems all across Manitoba. We have to have that passion and commitment to protect those languages. When I moved back to my home nation, after being away for so many years, close to 20 years, I went back to my First Nation, Pimichikamak, and I started teaching there. But when I was in the playground, I could still hear the kids talking to themselves in Cree. And that's a beautiful sound. And we need to get back to that place where we'll hear children on the school grounds speaking to each other in Anishinaabe, in Dene, in Cree, and Dakota. We have some work to do because our languages are worth preserving. Our languages are worth protecting. And I have no disrespect to other languages that are being protected in Canada. There's a lot of money invested in protecting the French language. And I say to the governments, what about our languages? They deserve protection too. Because our languages carry the stories that have preserved our people. Our languages carry the songs that healed our people. Our language contains our history. Our language contains our identity. And our language contains the power that we have as Indigenous people to be able to stand up in strength without fear, to be able to be who we are as Indigenous people. When they tried to take away our languages, they were trying to take away our identity, our culture, our traditions, and our customs. But I'm thankful today we still have our language and we still have our culture. And I say unto you today, for the next 25 years, we will not stop until every child knows their language and their first. It's possible. It's not impossible. Let's do it. Ginanas commit now. Hi.
Impact on improving and strengthening education in First Nations communities and continues to influence the work of schools, school divisions, and educational leaders throughout the province of Manitoba. We're committed as a government, working with educational partners, including the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Centre, to create pathways that support an Indigenous inclusive education system, which is grounded in truths, Indigenous histories, cultures, languages, traditional values, knowledge, and contemporary lifestyles. I hope that over the next 2 days, you're able to strengthen relationships, share knowledge, and enhance learning as you continue to do the hard work of creating the educational system that our ancestors envisioned and our children deserve. The path to an inclusive education system for Indigenous people is based on Indigenous story, culture, language, traditional values, and knowledge. Please make the most of the next 2 days as you share your practices to strengthen languages and culture. I'm here today because of education. I did not get my degree as an educator until I was 42 years old. I worked for 9 years as an educational assistant, and because of a previous NDP government that had the foresight to create an access program for Indigenous peoples, I was able to get my degree through the KTEP program, the Community-Based Aboriginal Teacher Education Program. So it's interesting how education can bring us to full circle moments. I'm only standing here because of the government I now represent, because they knew the importance of having more educators, and in particular, Indigenous educators. Once again, have a wonderful conference. I wish you all well. Thank you. Merci, miigwech.
All right, thank you, Emily. We're going to move into our next part of our agenda now. It's the keynote address. So I'd like to introduce Carl Subban. Carl Subban is a well-known dynamic motivational speaker, author, hockey dad, and lifelong educator who has learned to inspire people through parenting, teaching, and leading. Over his distinguished 3-decade career working in schools, he's celebrated and retired principal. Hey, an educator. Let's give him a round of applause. And he's helped children develop their potential. He's also a skilled Maxwell Leadership Certified Coach and DISC consultant, always looking to help others. Today, Carl leverages his public profile and passion for developing innovative throughout leaders and by assisting them in understanding how to work through growth barriers. Carl has contributed to building up the communities he's been a part of in many ways. Again, his commitment to personal and professional expansion saw him earn an honorary Doctor of Education degree from the Lakehead University in 2022. Give another round of applause for that, ladies and gentlemen. In Thunder Bay, Ontario. Carl's dedication to using his platform to inspire others to pursue their dreams has been formally recognized by his peers through the accolades, most notably Excellence in Education in 2012, followed by the prestigious Top 25 Canadian Immigrant Award in 2018. Wow, that's amazing. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm a big hockey fan myself, as Charles mentioned, and he delivered, as one of his son, PK, delivered the most amazing hockey hit I've seen in my life on one of the NHL's most, I guess, hated players, you call him. And that's Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins, if you don't know who that is. He delivered this, he was playing for the Canadiens at the time. I recall seeing this live. I'm not sure it was the playoffs or not, but he flattened Marchand. And I think the whole hockey world cheered for that hit. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Carl Subban, the father of these wonderful NHL stars. Thank you.
Wow, how is the mic? How is the mic? It's good, and my voice is coming through. I just want to say good morning to everyone. I am so happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to serving you. I want to thank Charles Cochrane and his team for inviting me here to get to know you, to speak to you. And I want to say a special shout out to my good friend, Michael Hutchison. Now, we have quite a few educators in the house, and you know that I'm an educator because of my voice. And as an educator, we're used to writing lesson plans. And so I wrote this plan today. And you know, sometimes things happen in our schools. Sometimes things happen in our classrooms. So I'm changing the plan so that you're not late for your first workshop. But I also want to shout out Elder Ed. Where's Elder Ed? He's over there. I participated in the pipe ceremony this morning, and I remember Elder Ed sort of educated me about the ceremony, and he said, you know, that I will feel better, I will think better, I will walk better, I will hear better, and I'll speak better. And Ed, so far it's working. I want to thank you, Ed. Now, something tells me that I'm in a room with people who want to make a difference, with people who want to make a difference. Isn't that right? Come on, folks. Come on. And I want you to know, I want to make a difference with people who want to make a difference doing something that is making a difference. And the Grand Chief, I heard you. The words, the culture, the language. Our young people need those things in order to reach their enormous potential. Now, I'm going to speed up a bit because of the time here. It's the silver anniversary. Wow. Silver anniversary. 25 years of durability. 25 years of strength. 25 years of stability. And I want to celebrate. I just want to celebrate a second. And I haven't done this before, but like a good teacher, you're not afraid to take risk. And I want to recognize the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center. Right? Am I correct with that? Now, when I say M, listen, folks, when I say M, everyone is going to say Manitoba. 1, 2, 3, M. When I say F, you're going to say first, F. When I say N, you're going to say nation, say nations. When I say E, you're going to say education, 1, 2, 3. And when I say R, you're going to say resource. When I say C, you're going to say, let's give them a hand. Come on, come on. Woo! Well, I like to move around, and because I don't have a lapel mic, I have to stand here. And we, as good educators, because we do make a difference, we know you can't sit at your desk and teach. You know what I mean? But because of the mic, I don't have one to walk around. But I'm going to start off with this because we don't have enough time. And I want everyone to participate here. I do this whenever I'm speaking to parents and educators. I want you to raise your hands if you agree with Carl Subban. Do you believe that our children are the future? Raise your hands. Wow. Wow. Do you believe that we should teach them well so they can lead the way? Wow. And teaching them about the language and the culture. Wow. That will help them to see the way. Do you believe we should give them a sense of pride? Raise your hands. Wow. Do you believe we should show them all the beauty they have inside? Raise 2 hands. That deserves 2 hands. And folks, that beauty that they have inside is what I'm here to speak to you about, potential. That's why I'm here, to speak to you about the beauty that our children have inside of them. Yes, and they need the language, and they need the traditions, and they need the culture in order to reach that potential. They also have to learn how to read and write and think. But anyway, I'm going to share this with you. Yes, I was on a hockey journey. As you know, in the classroom when the teacher is teaching, I listen and say, okay, it's okay. Everyone needs to listen because the teacher is teaching. All right? And I want you to know that I was on this journey. It was this hockey journey. And then I encountered some problems. My 3 sons wanted to have this big NHL dream. And we're on this journey. And I encountered some problems. Let me share some of them with you, folks. There was a knowledge problem. They say knowledge is power. I didn't have a lot of power when it comes to hockey. I came to Canada the summer I turned 12 years of age. So I didn't have the knowledge or information about hockey. I had a people problem. I was feeling at the time I didn't know all the right people. And then, you all know, I had a race problem, okay? There was a race problem and the hockey culture problem on top of it. And there's a geography problem because, you know, Jamaica, we make reggae artists, we make a nice rum punch, we make all these things, but Jamaica is not making hockey players. I had a history problem. I never played the sport. I did not grow up watching Hockey Night in Canada and having dreams of being Bobby Orr or Mr. Armstrong of the Maple Leafs. I didn't have that. And then there was the math problem. The odds of your son making the NHL are slim to none. And then I had the genes problem. People looked at it and says, no, they don't have the hockey genes. I'm glad I didn't believe them, okay? All right? And I'm telling you, so I'm on this journey to help my kids to reach their hockey dreams. And I had problems, all those. Then I had a breakthrough. I'm here to share with you that breakthrough, right? And I want to give it to you and for you to use so that you can help all those young people you're working with to reach their unlimited potential. Let me share with you. Here's the breakthrough. For those who are taking notes, here it is. I discovered in order to develop a hockey player, I had to recognize their potential and work with them to develop it. Wow. I had to recognize their potential and then work with them to develop it. And I don't know how you can work with students if you don't recognize their potential. That's what I'm getting to. So that's what I learned. So today's talk is about the 3 ways that I learned that the roads that we can take to help young people to develop their potential. I'm moving up because, as you know, I had to change the lesson plan. Here, for those who are taking notes, the first thing I learned about developing potential, you got to recognize it. I'm going to speak briefly about it. And then you got to create an environment for them to grow in it. And then you got to feed that potential when you see it. All right? Can I have the next slide? Okay, if some of you are wondering what potential is, the definition is there, right on the screen. Potential is having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. So before I start telling you about how I recognize it, I want to give you some information. So that's the definition. Let's get to the second slide. Wow, this is Carl Subban's life. I've lived in 3 worlds, working as an educator, working as a parent, and working as a coach. And in that Venn diagram, you see where they connect? Where X is? That was my focus. That's where their potential lies, in all 3 worlds. It's your job as a parent, as an educator, as a teacher, as a principal, as a support staff, to help young people to reach their potential. I don't see, that's why I walked in schools and I continue to do it for over 30 years. Next slide, please. So, some of you are saying, Mr. Subban, and I'm being quick here now, what does it look like? This is my image of potential. It's a 3-legged stool. You cannot convince me differently. I don't know who wants to start to convince me that potential, that it doesn't have 3 legs like a 3-legged stool. You got to be a dreamer, you got to be a believer, and you got to be a doer. Think about it. The 3 legs of the stool gives it stability and balance. And when I meet young people who are struggling, you know what I do? I look at their stool and legs are missing. They don't know why they're getting up. They don't know why they walk through the school doors. They need to have a why. We need to strengthen that belief. Those will come out in my presentation. Next slide, please. Wow. So those are my 3 sons there. If you don't know who I am, so that's PK wearing the Montreal jersey. He was drafted by the Canadiens. The middle one is Jordan Subban, my second son, who was drafted by Vancouver. And we have some Boston fans over here. Love the Bruins, I really think. Malcolm, who was drafted by the Bruins. And by the way, I grew up being a Habs fan. One of the most challenging moments I had was sitting in TD Gardens, waiting for Malcolm to step out on the ice with the Bruins. Wow, But anyway, let me move on quickly here. So remember, I had a problem, right? And then I learned how to, the things I need to do, the 3 things to help them to develop their potential. I had to see it in them. Folks, you don't have to see it on display to believe in them and their potential. Come on, come on. And by the way, it's so important when you believe in them, because sometimes they need to borrow the belief you have in them to get them started on believing in who they are. That belief is so important. And they were born with it. They were born with potential. They came in this world with it. And it's our job to help them to develop it and to reach it. I'm going to give you some statements now about recognizing potential, and I'm speeding up because Michael has warned me already not to go over time. Listen, for those who are taking notes, when you see the potential in them, they believe in that potential in them, right? When you see the potential in them, it influences how they see themselves. When you see the potential in them, they do more than they think they can. They will always do more. When you see the potential in them, it gives them the strength to work through adversity and failure. All right? So in order to develop a hockey player, I had to recognize and see their potential and then work with them to develop it. All right? Let's go to the next slide, please. Everyone's with me now. Wow. And by the way, that's little PK there in my backyard in Etobicoke. And the reason you're seeing that slide is, PK loved the camera. He's posing for dad. After recognizing it, the kids come into your classroom, they come into your school, you got to see that potential in them. They're coming in with it, right? And then you got to create an environment. The second part, you need to create a growth environment. Sometimes we got to assess the environment. Is it facilitating growth? Let me share some stuff with you here, for those who are taking notes and for those who are just listening. A growth environment is a place where you are continually being challenged. You got to challenge them. If the work is too easy, that's good, but you got to challenge them. A growth environment is a place where focus is forward. There got to be a dream leaving them. Remember that? Why? When kids don't know why they come to your school, you're going to see everything. They're going to be doing everything than the main reason why they should be there. All right? So when a growth environment is a place where the focus is forward. They got to have a dream, a goal, or why. Okay, a growth environment is a place that is more affirming. Wow. It's got to be more affirming. What do I mean by that? That you're working to get the best out of them. Folks, you continue to work to get the best out of them. What do I mean by best? It starts with you believing in their potential. You got to be encouraging. You got to show them sometimes. Okay? And the T in best is they got to trust you. Do they trust you? Do they like you? All right? A growth environment is a place where other people are growing. I'm going to tell you this as a leader, because we're all leaders in this room. You're not just a teacher. I never wanted a teacher in my schools. Our young people want a difference maker. You know what I did? You know what I did, folks? I took my Ontario teaching certificate and I crossed out the word educator. I wrote in the word difference maker because that's what our children need. You're not a teacher, you're a difference maker. Give yourselves a hand. Grand Chief, am I matching your enthusiasm and passion? Thank you. This is good. A growth environment is a place where people expect you to get better and do better. I worked at a middle school. I won't mention the name in Jane Finch. You can look it up. And I didn't see potential on display. I'm not going to say the staff didn't care, but I'll say to them, I'll say it here, they didn't care enough. They didn't care enough. You know what they said? I went to buy plants, to decorate the front foyer. They said, Carl, the kids are going to destroy it. The plants are still there. Guess who was destroying the kids' motivation and enthusiasm about who they are? It was the environment. We got to assess the environment. They said, Carl, we don't want them to go on school trips because they misbehave. I said, what? They're going. I raised the bar. The bar you set is the bar they achieve. And in the interest of time, I'm going to, can we go to the next? Wow. So this is PK here. So I'm going to go back a bit. Remember, in developing potential, you got to recognize it. You got to see it in them. And then you got to create an environment that's growing that potential. And by the way, I'm not talking about your leadership here, but you can't give them what you don't have. I was developing on the journey. I like to ask parents this and teachers, and I ask myself this because I wouldn't ask you. I'm going to ask you, what are you doing to be a better educator? What are you doing to be a better parent? For our kids to reach their potential, we got to get better. Don't expect them to get better if you're not getting better. So, sorry, that's just who I am. I'm a better parent today than I was yesterday. If I were to walk into school today, I'll be a lot better because I've been growing. I said to my vice principal, my former vice principal the other day, we met over the summer. And I said, Kwame, you know, I feel badly about what I did. He goes, what do you mean, Carl? I said, I could have done so much more for you when you were my vice principal. Because I'm growing. I don't have a problem to say it. I am growing. What are you doing to be a better educator, to be a better parent, and to be a better leader? I want to get on here about feedback. Before I even get on to feedback, we're talking about our young people reaching their potential, but there are things that get in the way of them reaching it. And I want to touch on that. And that's why you're there, to oversee these things. One, the choices they make. The choice. Are they lifting you? Or are they being a drag and weight on you? That's why you're there. That's got to be a part of the environment. And sometimes it's getting patient with the process. When I was working with my sons, yeah, there are times when you got to stick to it, and our kids have to learn to stick to it. Oh, here's one of my best reasons why kids don't meet their potential. They don't pay the price. Folks, you got to pay the price. Our young people must learn to pay the price. You know, when you go to Tim Hortons, I hope they're sponsoring this event. Because I'm okay. I hope they're sponsoring the event. When you go to Tim Hortons, you go to the drive-thru. And you get to the order window, you place your order. And then you get to the pickup window. What must you do before they give you what you order? What is it? You got to pay the price. And so when our children don't pay the price, it gets in the way of them reaching their potential. The last one I'm going to touch on is failure to think creatively when problems arise. There are going to be problems. Let me share with you, and I love this one, because I could have gotten in PK's way. And I love sharing this story. They say it's not what happens to us on the outside, it's how we deal with it on the inside. So we were in all the hockey parents, raise your hands. Hockey parents, we got quite a few here. All right, so we were in the Silver Stick tournament in Whitby, Ontario. And I saw PK coming out of the dressing room. He looked as if something had died in him. I'm gonna speed up the story. He told me what happened. He said, Dad, the coach told me I would never make it in hockey. And I'll never go as far as he did. He'll never make it. And so, wow, how did we deal with it? I'm going to share with you the message. I have a message for you. This is what I took away from that. Whatever you're facing, you should not make it bigger than the dream we're chasing. You remember the dream in that three-legged stool? The dream always got to remain bigger. Right? The Grand Chief, I love your dream. It's a big dream. It's a big vision. The dream's got to be bigger than whatever you're facing. The minute you make whatever you're facing bigger than where you want to go, you're not going to get there because you can't see behind it or beyond it. Everyone's with me? I'm just going to touch on briefly here about feedback and support. So I had to give PK the right feedback. I had to give him the right feedback, or else he would not have had that moment. He would not have been able to reach that enormous potential and reach his dream and goal if I, the teacher, and there was a teacher there, I wasn't up there. So feedback, it must be regular and constructive. All right, and remember this, feedback is only as good as the person giving it. If PK didn't know that I cared about him, I don't think that feedback would have had the impact I wanted to have. When you're connecting and communicating with your students, no matter what they're facing, they need to know you care. And they don't care about what you say or do until they feel it. All right? And I'm speeding up here. Everyone's with me there with that? And then support. For them to reach their NHL dreams and goals, we had to support them. Right? We gave them physical support. I built a rink in the backyard. And by the way, a quick story. The first time, I remember that Saturday night or Friday night, got all the equipment, first time dressing PK. It was like a puzzle, but I didn't have a picture to put it together. And I was so embarrassed the next day. I went to the arena and I quietly observed all the other parents dressing their son and daughter. Another support they need is emotional support. You know, and there are things that I did, and there are things when I had to calm down my children. And how did I support them emotionally? A lot of times it's asking them why. PK, you want to play in the NHL? You can't let this thing stop you. You can't let what you're going through stop you. So we always would go back to the why. Skills training. Skills training. You know, he made it to the NHL because we spent a lot of time training. And by the way, I'm going to give this to all the educators here. That's why I'm here. I'm going to give you the 4 T's. I'm going to give you the 4 T's. The first T is time. The second T, tasks. The third T, training. And the fourth T, team. When it came to the skills training, we made time. We made time to do our tasks. And then we practice. Practice makes better. Practice makes progress. Practice makes better. Practice makes progress. And by the way, all the educators here know about deliberate practice. You can't do things the same way and expect the same results. So when we were shooting pucks in the basement after a while, I would hang a tire before we fixed the basement. And listen to this, and I'll slowly swing it back and forth. And he had to try and shoot the puck through it and hit my mattress. I took it off the bed and placed it against the wall. And that's deliberate practice. You got to move them out of their comfort zone, right? So we made it because we got better. In order to reach your potential, you got to grow. You got to grow. Fourth, mentoring and coaching. Sometimes our children need mentoring and coaching. All right? And it's not always about academic work and so on. And they need people support. who do they need to be around to help them to go higher and further. And then they also need the resources. So I'm not sure about the time. Where am I with time? I'm almost there. Oh, good. And I don't mind finishing up and taking some questions, because that's why I'm here. And by the way, I'm looking forward to the workshop. Let me say something here about the workshop. Wow. I'm going to be participating this morning, and tomorrow I'm here. And you know, every workshop, Ed, where's the other Ed? Ed, I'm not you now. Look, I don't need the mic. Look at that. So inspirational. Really, you speak better. You're right. I looked up the workshop, and they all are leading us back to why we're here, helping our children to develop their maximum potential. But for that to happen, you have to continue to develop yourself as people and as leaders. I'm going to finish off with the growth part, because we want them to grow. So remember this, you got to give them growth environment. You can use that acronym, you can write the word growth down, growth. The G, give them a growth environment. Give them a growth environment. You need to assess it. And when I went to that school in Jane Finch, the environment wasn't right for growing. I had to leave. Without leadership, you have chaos. R, in growth. Recognize each person's growth needs. What's the one thing you want to
I didn't know that
grow?
he was going to open for questions.
Recognize their growth needs. Recognize their strengths. And by the way, young people need to know what they're good at, and they should be able to tell you what they're working on to do better. You wonder why sometimes they lack confidence. They don't feel that they're good enough. All right? So you gotta recognize each person's growth needs. Oh, in growth, open up opportunities for them to grow. And that's why you're here, to open up opportunities for them to grow. That's one of the things. I love this one. I love this one. The W in growth, walk with them in challenging times. You got to stay close to that. And when I worked as a principal in the school, and I did it for over 20 years, if I wanted to influence them, I had to spend time with them. You got to spend time with them. You can't influence them if you're not spending time with them. And in times of need, they want you to walk with them. And sometimes all they need to know is that you care and you're there. Sometimes you don't have to say a whole lot. And the T, you got to teach them to learn from every experience. Teach them to learn from every experience. Right? And the H, help them to add value to their teammates and classmates. I'm going to listen to this now. The T, the H in growth. Help them to add value to their teammates and classmates. When PK was being drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens and their coaching staff went to Quincy Secondary School, and they interviewed his classmates. They wanted to know if he was likable. Yeah, they were not going to draft him. They interviewed his teachers. They wanted to know if he was teachable. And then they interviewed the coaching staff of the Bulls. They wanted to know if he was coachable. Is your environment facilitating the steps they need to take for them to be likable, for them to be teachable, for them to be coachable? All right? And you know what? I'm going to stop right there because I'm sweating. Grand Chief, I just wanted to be like you, but I didn't know you were sweating so much. You didn't tell me that. All right. I don't know if you have any questions for me. I'm going to end it there. So while you're thinking about the questions, if you have any specific questions about education, I'm here. I mean, I work in at-risk neighborhoods in Toronto. Some of the things I talked about came out of that. Some of the things I talked about came out of my hockey life. and some of the things I talked about came out of my training. All right?
All right. Can we give Carl a big round of applause, please? Now we got time for a couple of questions, but I want to ask one of the first ones. Carl, how did you get introduced to hockey?
Wow, that's a very good question. So I'm going to go back here because, thank you. That's a good question, Michael. I came to Canada, I said the summer I turned 12, right? And we lived in a street called Peter Street in Sudbury, Ontario. It's still there, Google it, 293 Peter Street. It's now Mountain Street, the house is still there. And this is what happened. I remember the second day I woke up, I looked outside, I said to my mom and dad, I'm not going out there. They go, why, Carl, why? I said, Mom and Dad, I did not see one person who looked like me. They didn't know what to say. Another day came, I heard conversation. I said, Mom and Dad, what are they saying? They said, we don't know because they're speaking French. They're all Francophones. So you can imagine, I wanted to get a ticket and fly back to Jamaica. But anyway, I had to go to school. And this is for everyone here. I had to go to school. And Ed, Michael, can you go in my bag? And there's a book in there. You can go in my knapsack. There's a book in there, the 2 books. I want to give them away. My first book, How We Did It, I wrote about my first teacher, Mr. Kangas. And there's so many Mr. Kangas in this room. He was making a difference, and he didn't know. I wrote about it. He helped me so much, but he didn't know it. And that's who we are as teachers. They say a flower never sees its seed. A flower never sees its seed. Or the seed never sees the flower. The seed never sees the flower. So I was at a book signing in Sudbury. Someone had told him that I'd written about it. And he came and we embraced. And that's why I'm going to say to everyone here, and many people said it, you are making a difference. Listen, this is what we're going to do now. And I do this all the time and it works. I'm going to ask you to stand up, not yet, and you're going to point to someone and you're going to say, you're making a difference because you are. Can we stand up? I'm going to count to 3. Let's stand up. Please, let's stand up.
Rachel, stand up.
All right, ready? Are we ready? On 3, when I tell you to, you're going to say, you're making a difference. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, you may sit now. But let me finish the story. 30 seconds. So, I love walking to school because of Mr. Kangas. We have many Mr. Kangases in here and Mrs. Kangases. I love walking to school because of Mr. Kangas. But I didn't like walking home into that neighborhood where I didn't fit in. You know what those kids did one day? Think about it. This is where I get into the bullying. If I was in your school, I'll tell that. You know what they did one day? I'm walking home. They were playing street hockey. And by the way, I want to give these away, Michael. They were playing street hockey close to my home, 293 Peter Street. And you know what they did? I'm saying they're not going to see me. But they called out to me, do you want to play hockey with us? That's why I'm here. Think about it. They could have called me all these names. They could have bullied me, but they were more than that. They were better than that. They were greater than that. And that's why I'm here telling this story. And that's the spirit in which I come. That is the spirit in which I'm here today. And that's how I started in hockey. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have a question? You'll get a book. First 2 questions get a book. Anybody got a question? Raise your hand, please. Okay. You got a choice?
And I'll find it.
Okay.
Answer, sir. I guess what I want to ask you is, your 3 sons that made it to the NHL, did you have any daughters in your family?
Wow, that's a really
Did you
powerful
influence
question.
them?
Thank you. I have the three sons, and do I have any daughters? And I grew up, I have three other brothers, and the one thing I wanted some daughters. And God blessed me. We started out with two daughters. They're both educators in the Toronto District School Board. My youngest just became a school administrator. And by the way, they were teachers before they were formally trained, because they taught the boys how to skate. It wasn't really me. It was, okay, so thank you. Good question.
All right, we have one at the back of the room there.
The 4 T's that you talked about, time, tasks, and training. What was the 4th T?
Okay, that's a good question, because, I mean, the 4 T's, wow. The first T is time. TK made time to do the second task. The second T, tasks. Skating, shooting pucks, stick handling. And the third T is training. No one gets better overnight. And the 4th T is team. Yeah, sorry, team. You gotta be a good teammate. You gotta be a good classmate. And by the way, when kids were coming to my school, they knew the 4 T's. Why do you come? Why do you come? I come to Mr. Subban's school to work hard, to be a better person, a better student, and so I'm also a better athlete. And how will I see that in action? Well, the 4 T's. You come to school in time. Because I've never worked with a young person who was late every day and met the expectation. You come to school in time, you got to do the work. And sometimes I remember one young man, he was not allowed to walk into the classroom until he told me why that he was here in my school, because he'd walk in the classroom and he didn't know why. And when they don't know why, they don't learn. And that's your job. But first, let me share this with you. They will not do what you want them to do until you connect with them, you have a relationship with them. And sometimes we miss that step.
All right, that's the end of Carl's speech, so can we give him another round of applause, please? All right, while they're doing that, I just want to get some, for those people looking for Centennial 1, it is back over here. See that space in the wall over there? Where that gentleman's waving the thing? That is Centennial 1. So if you're looking for Centennial 1, that's where it's at, okay?
Before we head out to our session, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Subban. You know, it's an example of what our children need, our schools need, a role model in terms of leadership and so on. And that's a great, you know, certainly when you look at the qualities of parent, an educator, and a coach, a true example of that. So thank you very much. And again, maybe one thing, and I know it's, you talked about hockey player, we have a Bears hockey team in the city here. You can qualify. There's only one item that you're required, and you have to be 50. So I think you qualify. Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
So again, I really appreciate it. It's an honor having you speak to our very much hard workers out there. But exactly that. That's the motivation. So it should be wish to Carl. Thank you very much.
All right, one more round of applause for Mr. Subban, everybody. All right, we're going to go into our workshop part of the morning. Again, we have multiple rooms that have wonderful sessions that are going to be going on here. So if you're going to do that, please do so now. We're going to come back here at lunchtime. And again, let's give Michael Hutchinson a big round of applause also for starting our morning off. I first met Michael at APTN. If you didn't see him on APTN National News, there's a secret behind Michael that I found out in person. And it's that, you know, when you see a news reporter, you only see them from here up, right? On TV, you see them below the counter. So when I went there for an interview with Michael about music, he invited me on I can't even remember what we were doing at the time, but he wasn't wearing pants. So I showed up there and he's like, "Oh, welcome to the studio." And he only had he had a suit jacket like this, and his tie and everything was all done, his hair was all done, makeup was all done. But he had these shorts on and he had his Converse shoes. So I'm like, perfect. Business on top, party on the bottom. Let's hear it from Michael one more time. We'll come back here at 12 o'clock for your lunch. Thank you.
All right, like I said, Centennial One is just over there. Please make your way to the workshops. There will be one in here as well. I hope you enjoy your day. Have a great one.